राधे राधे नितिन जी।
राधे राधे संध्या, राधे राधे विजय जी,
राधे राधे,
धन्यवादः, नमो नमः, बहु समीचीनं, पुनः मिलामः।
पुनः मिलामः।
Wow.
मिलामः.
His vocabulary is doubled in the last.
Yeah, from 1 to 2 words for sure. Thank you, Vijay ji, for a wonderful session.
Thank you, Nitin ji.
Have a great rest of your evening. Okay, good morning, good evening, everybody. Radhe Radhe. Hope you had a great weekend and a great start to your week as well. I'm excited to be back. Hope the feeling is mutual.
Yes, yes.
We'll
So
continue.
I think.
Yes, go ahead, Sandhya.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, everyone. Good evening and good morning. Welcome to the Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita session. Today we are going to talk about Dance of Maya. I'm quite excited to learn about it from Nitin ji. I just request all of you to switch on your videos and hand over to you, Nitin ji.
All right. Thank you, Sandhya. So good morning, good evening, everybody. We'll get started. We will pick up from where we had left because we have not covered all the principles of surrender. And in the course of discussion, we will also talk about the dance of Maya that we've been doing merrily and happily since time eternity. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and then we will get started with our opening prayers. Welcome again. Hope you're having a wonderful start to your week. Let me share my screen. All right. Is everything looking fine, Sandhya?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll get started with our opening prayers then. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Ishvaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening once again, everyone. So let's get started. We were actually discussing Shloka 4.11, and in 4.11, the only thing we did not discuss in detail was the concept of surrender. We did not quite cover how do we know what is God's will, and that is where we'll pick up from today and move towards the remaining tenets or the principles of surrender. So I'm going to recite this shloka. I picked up this shloka from chapter 18, verse 62, which talks about the principles of surrender, and we will recite it. You're welcome to follow. I'll get started then. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashwatam. All right. Any volunteers today? All right, Shyamji is the early one. Over to you, Sandhya, to pick up names.
Yes. Radhe Radhe Shyamji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Tamev sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashwatam. Radhe Radhe.
Yes. Radhe Radhe. Shyamji.
Radhe Radhe Pragi ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
sorry. त्वमेव शरणं गच्छ सर्वभावेन भारत तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिं स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Very nice, Bhaviji. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Radhe Radhe Rupa ji.
Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe Rupa.
Tamev saranam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim prapsyasi shashvatam.
Sthanam prapsasi.
Sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Sorry.
Very nice, Rupa ji. All right, let's take a few more hands.
Radhe Radhe Sumesh ji.
Radhe Radhe Nitin ji, Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe.
Tamev saranam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param santim sthanam prapsyasi saswatam.
Very nice, Sumesh.
Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Rahul ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Rahul.
Sharanam gacch sarvabhaven bharata tat prasadat param shanti sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful, Rahul. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Riya ji.
Radhe Radhe Riya ji.
Radhe Radhe. Tam evam sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam.
Wonderful.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe Sam ji.
Radhe Radhe Radhe.
Sam ji.
Tamev sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapasyasi shashvatam. Radhe Radhe.
Prapsyasi. Prapsyasi. Very nice. Radhe Radhe. Sam ji. Okay, we can take a few more hands.
Yeah, okay. Ashutosh ji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Ashutosh ji.
Why is he not getting unmuted? I think there's some problem.
Okay.
Chetan ji.
Okay.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe.
Tamev sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shante sthanam prapsi shashvatvam.
Very nice. Chetan ji, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Delhi, India.
Delhi. Good to have you on the session. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, sir. Radhe Radhe, sir.
Very nice. Okay. Are we good or do we have few more hands?
There are two more, actually 3 more hands, including
Okay,
me.
let's take, we have a little bit of time.
Yeah, so Hetal ji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Hetal ji.
Radhe Radhe. Tvameva saranam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param santim sthanam prapyasi saswatam.
Wonderful. Very nice, Hetal ji. All right, let's take a few more hands.
Ashutosh ji. Radhe Radhe.
Ashutosh ji, you're playing mute, unmute with us. Now you're unmuted.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Tamev saranam gaccha sarvabhavena bharat tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam.
Yeah, today looks like you borrowed your audio from Shyamji.
Actually, I'm in train going to meet Swamiji.
No worries, no worries.
Wow.
All right. Let's take, are we good then? Let's get started then. Have we covered everybody?
I am not covered. I also wanted
Oh,
to. Can I?
Sandhya, you yourself. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Tamev sharanam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful. Very nice. So you get double grace today. One for co-hosting and one for reciting the shloka. Okay, so let's get started. Tamev tam unto him ev only sharanam gacha surrender sarva bhavena wholeheartedly Bharata Arjun, the son of Bharat, tat prasadat by his grace param supreme shantim peace sthanam the abode prapsasi you will attain shashwatam eternal. So we were discussing. So in this shloka, God is saying, he's referring himself to as a third person, he's saying surrender exclusively unto him. Because in the previous shloka, he's talking about Ishvara, that he resides within our heart. And then he's continuing that by referring to Ishvara, which is none other than himself, Lord Krishna. So he's saying surrender exclusively unto him with your whole being, O Bharat. By his grace, you will attain perfect peace and eternal abode. And that's where we started with this concept that if you row a boat and you keep rowing it the entire night, like there was a story we picked up that some Brahmins in Mathura, in the state of intoxication, they got into a boat and which was chained to the shore, as you can see in the picture, and they continued rowing it throughout the night. And then when the morning, when sanity returned, when their intoxication finally left off, they realized that they had not moved even an inch. Now, why did that happen? Because it was chained. Similarly, even though we have practiced devotion to God innumerable lifetimes, see, just think of it. We are technically the same age as God. So in every lifetime, even if we have recited God's name once, we have already done it infinite number of times. Has it resulted in God realization for us? No. And the reason for that is that actually our mind is chained to the world. So many things in the world. Attachment to wealth, children, spouse, and our agendas, they continue going. They just go on and on. And then when your mind is attached to something, you keep on moving. No matter what we do with your senses, its multiplication with zero. It really doesn't take us any far. So that is the reason, even though we keep on doing bhakti, right? All of us, I mean, at least I've been brought up to religious, a lot. We know that how the pujas and everything happen, not to suggest it's going on like that, but then if our mind is chained, mind is thinking about something else and we are doing our rituals, it doesn't give any value at all. And that is the concept. Then when we speak about the concept of surrender, what needs to be surrendered? And that surrender has to be mind. All the karmas which are done by mind are taken note by God, not the physical drill that you do. So through physical drill, you might be doing a lot of ritual activities, and through mouth you might be saying God's name. But if your mind is somewhere else, then that doesn't count for anything. And that is where even in surrender, the mind is what needs to be surrendered, nothing else. It's not like I'm surrendered, you have said that, and the surrender is complete. So then we got into the concepts of surrender, starting with the 6 concepts that are there. Desire only in accordance with desire of God. That is the first principle. The second one is the reiteration of that in another way, which says not to desire against the desire of God. We'll get into those examples. Third one is having that firm faith that God is protecting us. Fourth one is to maintain an attitude of gratitude. Fifth one is seeing everything as we possess as belonging to God. Not having a sense of proprietorship over anything at all. And the last one is to give up the pride of having surrendered. That is an important one as well. So let's continue from where we had left. So we spoke about the first concept, right? As you can see, the leaves are flying here, and it is definitely not from movie Mohabbatein. Okay, so this is just about the fact that the leaf is completely surrendered to the will of the wind. It does not complain whether the wind lifts it up, takes it forward, backward, drops it to the ground. Similarly, we too must learn to be happy in the happiness of God. And then the question came, how do we know what is the will of God in a particular situation? Do we have a way to know that? Do we have those siddhis where we can We can't even read each other's minds. We take a good guess at it. How can we read God's mind to know in this particular situation this was the will of God? We'll take this question. I know we spoke about a few things the other day, but we really did not tackle this question. So we'll take it along with the second principle once we have gone through the second principle as well. Now, let's take it first, then we'll get to the second principle. All right, so it's not possible for us to know what is God's will in particular situation. However, we can make a best guess around that situation. Okay. Now, once you do that, how would you know whether you align to God's will or not, right? So I'd asked this question to Swamiji as well, and he gave me a very interesting example on this. So has anybody played cricket or tennis for that matter? Any sports or badminton for that matter? Any sport that you have played or table tennis for that matter, when you hit the ball in the sweet spot, you just know it, right? Have you seen the look on Dhoni's face when he hit that winning run when India won the World Cup? He just followed through and looked at it. He just knew that he has hit the sweet spot and the ball will sail past the rope. So those of you who have played cricket, you just know you have hit the sweet spot. Even in tennis, you know that you have hit the sweet spot. Similarly, when you do something and it aligns to God's will in that particular situation, intuitively you will get a sense that you did the right thing. Intuitively, it will tell you you did the right thing. That is how powerful it is. However, in some cases, you may not get that feeling, or you may still not know. It is possible, right? We cannot be guided completely by our intuition. In some cases, you may still have a little bit of doubt that maybe I aligned to God's will or maybe I did not. It can happen. Then what to do? In that case, you just have purity of intention and sincerity at heart, because purity of intention in any situation is our insurance policy. That's what God says. He also understands that you are making a best attempt at something with a purity of intention around that. Any act that we do, it's a very simple check for us. Are we doing it for ourselves? Do I have some vested interest that I'm trying to serve? Or am I doing it with the purity of intention so that I can serve or help somebody? That answer is a very simple one for us in every situation. Am I doing it to serve my interest and externally I'm showing it off to somebody as if I'm coming across as helping out somebody? That check is a very, very simple check for us. You will get a knock and an understanding. Yes, you know what? There is a little bit of dilution in your intention because there's some kind of a motive or vested interest that has taken over when you're doing this thing. And that will tell you. So in most situations, our intuition will let us know that we have aligned to God's will in this case. And in some cases where it doesn't, you approach that situation with the purity of intention that God, that is the best I can understand in this situation. And God will still give you credit for that. It is like an insurance policy. So this is what the first principle says. Act in accordance with the desire of God. Now, the other part of it is, it's a reiteration of the same principle, however, in a negative way, not to desire against the desire of God. And this is a principle we keep on violating, both, in fact, first and second also. I mean, it obviously, as we become more and more purer and clarity of thought, will keep on getting better at these principles. But whenever we have a bit of a complaint, that means we have violated both the principles. That means we are thinking that our desire, our understanding is, what we were thinking about is better than what God had planned for us. And that means we have violated both the principles. When we say, oh, I wish this would have happened, or why did this happen to me? Or, oh my God, why it's going on like this? That means we violated both the principles. It's like we have forfeited an opportunity to have the prasad buddhi. We are all right. I can only do so much. Beyond a point, results anyway depend on God's hands. So that is an opportunity lost when we think about something. So when we are dwelling in the past, right? Why do we dwell in the past or worry about the future? that is also, in a way, you are actually violating this principle, because you are thinking about something, you know what, this happened, and if only this could have happened, and then that means the desire of God is something you are not aligning with. You are not able to let go of it, right? You put in your best. That doesn't tell, it does not, basically, it doesn't have to be construed as being fatalist. The way it has to be understood, it, you try your best, and after that, if things don't work out, if they don't work out, sometimes it's not meant to be, we simply let it go in our head. The second one is not to desire against the desire of God. So when people get the material opulences, wealth, fame, pleasure, and luxuries, and things are going well, then that gratitude is usually missed out, because we write that moment. And when the suffering comes, we start blaming God, saying, why did God this to me? Kind of a thing. That complaint starts rearing its head in our head. Why did God this to me? I've been a good person all my life, and I never wished bad to anybody. And all those arguments, your mind will start presenting you as if we are the best person out there in this universe, right? So that is an opportunity lost again. One humorous story, which is, as Swamiji tells to illustrate this concept, is once they were, a lot of Brahmins, they were going in a boat, from, let's say, from one city to another. And then on the way, there was a big tempest or a storm started brewing up. So when the storm started brewing up, um, the person who was rowing the boat, he said, you know what, it's going to rain really hard, and storm is coming really thick and fast, and looks like we are going to drown today. So there was a Brahmin there with his kamandal, right, that small pot that they carry in their hand. The moment he heard it, he started taking water from the river and putting it in the boat vigorously. And people were saying, what kind of a crazy person it is. First of all, we are having this big trouble going on, and this guy is actually taking water and putting it into the boat, not helping the cause at all. Anyways, they were too worried about what's happening around. And after a few, after a while, the say that the person who was rowing the boat, I mean, they saw that the storm had started abating. So finally, it looked like the heavens were clearing up, and he said, looks like we are going to survive. The storm is going to pass by, and we can continue our ride. So when he heard that, he started taking water from the boat and started putting it back into the river. Right. So then people asked him that, okay, what's going on? Can we understand your actions? Just completely absurd. Just does not make sense what you're trying to do. If you are drowning, you are putting water in the boat. When we are already saved, now you're putting it back. What's going on? He said, when you said the storm is coming up, we might drown. So I thought maybe God's desire is for us to drown today. So I thought, let me help him. So I started taking water and putting it in the boat. So he was actually trying to help God. And then when you said the storm is abating, that means maybe God does not want us to drown. So let me align to God's will now, taking the water out. So the point here be, in both the scenarios, he was trying to align to God's will. Maybe he had understood these principles, but there's a humorous way to understand that how we can actually align to God's will in either situation. He did not panic, or say, no, by the way, let's do everything possible to save ourselves. He said, all right, maybe God wants us to die, so let me just support that part of it, right? So that's just to illustrate the point. So this is the best guess we can make around what could be God's will in a particular situation. However, having said that, there would be times where we may not know, and in those times, the purity of intention and sincerity at heart is our insurance policy. We still get credit for that. So in Seven Mindsets, Swamiji, that book that he has written, I'd asked him which one out of this you think is, if we were to pick one out of it, which one is the most important one? And he said the most important one is the purity of intention. If we keep purifying our intention behind everything that we do, we are doing ourselves a huge favor. Because our mind, the way it works is, it will come camouflaged, the self-interest camouflaged in so many ways. I'm trying to help somebody, I want to look good, but there is some kind of a vested interest usually. And when we start purifying it, we draw a lot of grace from God. And if you look at the Karam Yoga aspect of it, you start attaching your intention as a service to God. So naturally, the de facto impact of it would be purifying your intention as well. So these are the first two principles. Let's move on to the next one. The third one says that having the firm faith that God is protecting us. It's a pretty interesting one, right? So if you look at, have we seen any ants dying of hunger? They don't. In fact, when you see in your home, sometimes you would be amused to see that there's a cashew lying somewhere and ants start flocking it. So how does it happen? Is it that the ant was taking an evening walk and came across the cashew? Who's actually taking them to the food? So God has actually done provision for all the species of this earth, okay, for their food. Even Bible says that the birds, they don't sow seeds or plow the fields and still they get their food. And it is said even for humans, do waqt ki roti is taken care of for everybody, unless of course you have decided not to do anything in this life. But we need from 2 to 4 and then something else as well, right? That continues. But then God has actually taken care of it. That is what it is said. Yes, if you have decided not to do anything, or maybe your karmas dictate that you do something really, that is a different story, but it is taken care of for everybody. It will happen. God will turn the key in somebody's heart and that person will come and serve food to you. It can happen too as well, miraculously. But let's look at some of these species. Even if you look at the appetite of elephants, voracious appetite they have, they need mounds and mounds of food, and that planet actually provides for that as well. Mahatma Gandhi had said that it's not the need of humans, but the greed of humans that is the problem. In fact, our planet has the fertile land, which can actually support 10 times more population. We are around 7 to 8 billion right now. Even if the population is 10 times more, that much land is available. But are we sustaining it is the question. Now that land, you start putting tobacco on it, right? All those things, and it starts becoming infertile and stuff like that. But that's a human greed which can mess it up. But the point here is that it has enough to sustain whatever population comes here. That is how resilient the nature or the prakriti has been designed. And even the ant landing on a cashew, as I said, during an evening walk. So all these kind of things are examples that God is there to protect us. In fact, there is a very interesting series from Haji, Ab to tum hi maan lo har. Right? So it's like a little bit of a this thing. So let's say you're hanging on a cliff. Right? Somebody, I forgot that beautiful message, hanging on a cliff and barely hanging by a thread. And down comes a voice that, okay, let go of it, I'll catch you. God says that. And then you say, no, you first catch me and then I'll let go of it. God says, no, you let go of it, I'll catch you. You say, no, you first catch me, then I'll let go of it. So that argument will continue. The thing is, we don't have faith. Right? We are being protected by God. And God says, if when you start having that faith, then he will manifest. It's just like a naval officer goes with his wife on a sail ship and takes out his sword and puts on her neck. Right? When he puts on her neck, razor sharp sword on her neck, then he asks her, are you not scared? So she says, of course not. You are my well-wisher. How can I be scared? That level of faith is needed. We can do it on humans, but it for in matter of God, it is difficult for us to do that. But that doesn't mean you become dumb around that, right? There's a joke around that. There's a guy who was drowning and then somebody said, hey, give me your hand, I'll take you to the lifeboat. He said, no, God is there, he'll protect me. And then somebody else says, yeah, we've got a lifeboat, can you come, last one of it? He said, no, if God is there, he'll protect me. And then a helicopter comes and says, come over, your ship is down. He said, no, if God is there, he'll protect me. And then finally he drowns. So he goes to the God and starts complaining, say, God, I trusted in you, and what happened to me? So he said, who do you think, I was extending the hand to you or sent the helicopter to you? Why didn't you accept that? So the point is, we have to have that faith, and then we draw grace and help from God as well. But then we lose that faith and start building our own assets and stuff like that, and that's where the problem starts happening. Even the Patanjali Yoga Sutra that talks about being minimalistic is actually getting closer to this principle where you start leading things to God. He's there to take care of you. There are a lot of stories, I'm not going to get into it, where even the sannyasis, the ways the gurus test them is actually to tell them, come, leave everything. But people, keep a few things extra, maybe some coins I would need on the way or some extra pair of clothes and stuff like that. In fact, there was a lady who was told by Maharajji to come to Vrindavan, and she was told, just take an extra pair of clothes and come over. And she kept some gold coins, some extra food, and another pair of clothes. And she started walking towards Vrindavan. And on the way, she had to take bath, and she kept the stuff there. And monkeys came, ate the food, gold coins, everything they took, and left, whatever she was told to keep with her, and left. And then she realized, it is a journey of faith. You need to trust the word and go ahead with it. We are conditioned, it's difficult for us to do that, but that is where spirituality is called a journey of faith. And more faith we repose in God and Guru, the better we start getting at these principles. So this is the third one. The fourth one is having an attitude of gratitude toward God. Now, there are so many blessings that, just the fact that we wake up every day, that itself is a huge blessing. I don't know how many million people, they don't wake up every day. The fact that when we are sleeping, there is 40 factories worth of work going on inside our body silently. Who's sustaining it when we are not even aware who we are? When we are in deep sleep, do we even know who we are? Right? All the grudges and the things and the cravings and the desires and all that stuff just goes to sleep. And then we wake up, the entire world comes alive, right? But who's sustaining us when we are not even aware of ourselves? God is, right? And then he has provided us the body, the fruit, all the things that we need to nourish ourselves, to sustain ourselves. The fact that we are able to breathe, the fact that we have an able body, right? Some people complain we don't have anything. So you tell them, okay, I'll give you 10 crore rupees, give me one of your eye or both of your eyes. Will they give? No. You say, I'll give you 50 crore, give me a couple of your limbs. Will you give? No. That means we are already billionaires. Just the fact that we have this able body to sustain or to work and do things with it is a huge blessing of God. So there are so many things that we take for granted. The fact that sun and moon are at our service, we take it for granted as if, that's meant to happen, sense of entitlement. But like it is said, in the human mind, in ordinary settings, extraordinary things are overlooked. So everything, like even Einstein said, there are only two ways of looking at this world. Everything is a miracle or nothing is. So if you think deeply enough, you will see everything that is happening around is a miracle, nothing short of a miracle. Right? The fact that even if you think through the process of a newborn getting born, from a side of a seed which has an imprint of all the organs or all the way up to a full-blown body, mother is simply eating food, absolutely no control over it. How does it happen? If somebody deeply thinks about it, they will know that something special is happening. So all that stuff is actually, there are so many reasons for us to have an attitude of gratitude. And when we have that, we draw more of God's grace. So this is a great, great attitude to have, where the earth that we walk upon, the sunlight that we see, the air we breathe, there are just water we drink, existence to begin with. God imparts us the consciousness. If we did not have the consciousness, there's absolutely no opportunity we would have to perfect ourselves. Sometimes I used to wonder this question. It took me a long time to say, why consciousness? Let it be a deep sleep. Why this creation to begin with? Was God bored, who needed some kind of an entertainment, and not created, but gave us all these faculties and gave us consciousness? Because when the pralaya or happens, we are actually in deep sleep at that point. Why does he unleash us again? So let's say when we are sleeping, actually it is called, the sleeping is one of the highest blisses in this material world. The actual sleep that you get, the deep sleep, not the one where you are having dreams. Your mind is still awake at that time. When your mind is also asleep, there are different avasthas. So it's called swapna avastha is not that. Beyond that, you get into turiya and those avasthas. It is considered as one of the highest blisses possible in material world. But the irony of that bliss is that you are not aware you are in that bliss. It's only when you get up You say, ah, I had a great sleep last night. There are times, right? We feel that way. That's when we come in contact with God actually at that moment. That's when we get that sleep. They say that Brahma actually does an alingan. He actually hugs us at that moment when everything is quiet. And when we do meditation, meditation is actually getting into that sleep in a wakeful, mindful state. In that state, mindful, it's not a mindful state. And in meditation, when you start getting into that mindful state, that bliss, when you start experiencing, that's called samadhi. So now, if you are in a deep sleep always, like it happens in case of pralay, then you are not even aware you are in bliss. Then what's the point? The fact that we wake up, we are unleashed, is when we can mindfully do things, experience bliss and perfect ourselves. So it is the fact that God unleashes us from time to time is also a part of his mercy, so that we can become like him one day. Right? The very definition of God is one who's great and who has an ability to make others great. And so many saints have actually achieved God and reached that perfection. And if one person can do it, so can we. That's what Swami Vivekananda said as well, right? One person in flesh and blood can do it, then so can others as well. And that is an opportunity God gives us. So just the fact that he's given us life is an opportunity or a reason for us to celebrate and have a gratitude towards God. And so on. So we have gone into the 4 part. And do we pay any tax in return for that? We don't pay, do we? We don't. So actually God says that, okay, don't pay tax, but the fact that I've given you all 10%, at least give it for some parokar or do something. That is why the 10% rule is there, charity rule. That will actually justify, that okay, now because we took or availed so many things in this from this earth and this universe and from people around and from the ecosystem around. So this is something we need to give. Otherwise, God says you are simply having a thief mindset. Just take, and just move away. So that is why that 10% rules come in as well, right? That is the tax our scripture says obligated on us to express our gratitude towards whatever we acquire from things around us. Right? If Bill Gates would not have been a Bill Gates if there were no people to buy his software. Right? So it's we cannot create anything. Energy, Lakshmi is energy, or money is also an energy which flows. It's one of God's energies, right? And we cannot create it on our own. We are dependent on so many people just to acquire something as well. Right? And it's important to have that mindset of gratitude towards anything and everything that we get. Again, the same concept of window movement. Anything good that happens to us or we end up achieving, actually there is a whole chain that has supported that. Right? Even the food that we get on our table, for that matter, right from farmer all the way up to the supply chain, the marts, it comes to and somebody cooks it, gets it to our table, and then we take it, right? So nothing can exist in isolation. We have to take, and that's why having that attitude of gratitude really helps around it. Daniel Peel is an author. He writes on he's a Western author. One of his books, he spoke about if you simply write 5 gratitudes every day and have an attitude of blessing people or smiling, and these small things, they start making a lot of difference. And our scriptures say when you have an attitude of gratitude, then you start drawing more and more of God's grace. All right, so 4 principles we have covered. 5th one, we will leave it for today. So the other important aspect is the fact that what stops us from surrendering, right, is what we are going to discuss a little bit. It's tied to this concept because we are busy doing a dance. Okay, and this is called the dance of Maya. So if you look at this, electrons who are going around this nucleus in a subatomic particle, and is it an enjoyable experience? So let's get the discussion going, and then I'll have a follow-up question around it as well. What is this dance of Maya, and is it an enjoyable experience? Which basically is not satiated, and we think one day we will do that. And if you look at the nucleus here, nucleus is Maya, and that is what we have been doing all since time eternity. Like faithfully obeying planets around the sun. That is how we have been rotating around Maya. And this dance has been continuing since time eternity. So what's the reason for that? Is it truly an enjoyable experience that we want to experience again and again and again and again, and think one day we will go to get it? Or what is it that compels us to actually continuing in the orbits? As you can see, these electrons are rotating around the nucleus. So let's have that discussion going, and then we'll have a follow-up question around that as well. Yes, I can see a hand. Preeti ji.
Preeti ji. Radhe Radhe Preeti ji.
Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe Preeti ji.
So yes, I'll handle the second one. Is it an enjoyable experience? I don't think it is. We have an illusion that it is an enjoyable experience because we do not know the bigger and the better experience. As you had once said, Nitinji, when we realize the bigger truth, the small truths start falling off. When we realize the bigger pleasure, the smaller pleasures start falling off. And the same way, we haven't realized God. We do not know what is it having Him with us, within us. And so we continue this, orbit around the nucleus, like those molecules. We do not have an aim. We're just in the loop there and there again and again. Radhe Radhe, my 2 cents.
Yeah, they were definitely more than 2 cents, Preeti ji. Great. Let's hear from other participants. It's very true, and we'll build on this discussion now. Let's hear from a couple of other participants, and I have a follow-up question. More importantly, okay, problem we are going to talk about, and let's talk about the solution as well. So yes, let's hear. I can see.
Ramya ji. Radhe Radhe Ramya ji.
Radhe Radhe Ramya.
Am I audible?
You are extremely audible.
Okay. So what I was telling is the dance that is there, and we are happy, and but we don't know the bumps ahead that lie. And if we see for the electrons motion around the nucleus, maybe I can think of it this way, that they don't remain at the same point. There is highs and low there. As per so they go high, again they come low, and again they go high, and it is not permanent. And when we don't see it that it keeps changing and it is cyclic at one specific place, we start enjoying it.
Very true. Very true. We may keep on changing our location around, but that dance continues. So let's continue on that. Let me put a follow-up question on it and then take this discussion forward. Great point, Sri Ramaji and Preeti ji. So are you able to hear me okay right now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Fine. So what is the formula to align Maya, like the planets align around the sun here? Now the point here is that Maya has infinite ways to make us dance. There's absolutely no escape from it. No escape means absolutely no escape from it. So is there a formula to start aligning Maya? I'll tell you, if you're busy in Maya, Maya has so many ways to keep you busy. You will never have time for anything. You will be the super busy person in this world. Absolutely no time for anything. This is the rule of Maya, right? If you serve God's inferior energy, which is Maya, Maya says, all right, I will tire you down and you will get no time whatsoever. That is the dance of Maya, right? And then the second aspect of it is that it is called a farce or a fraud. I'll tell you what fraud now. Now, if you don't feel good someday, you wake up and you feel very depressed. Okay. It's just like one of those days, getting out of the bed is a problem today. Just go and check your spam email that day. Okay. You would have hit a lottery, $10 billion. You just need to click this link and all the entire money will be transferred to your account, right? There will be 10 matrimonial proposals waiting for you, all lining up to marry you once again, whether you're married or not, right? There'll be 50 banks who are willing to give you loans. So you will start feeling really good about it when you start checking your spam emails. Okay, there are so many things that come to your spam. It's like, really, was it worth so much? Why didn't people tell me earlier? Now, if you have already experienced that, do you think it is real happiness? Is it truly going to give you that happiness? They're all frauds, right? I mean, if you have been working on emails and all that stuff long enough, you would know there is a reason why they go to the spam folder. right? Because even Google Gmail has figured it out that there are certain emails which just directly needs to be deposited into your spam folder, because they are all frauds. They're trying to cheat you, right? They will say, okay, you'll get $10 billion. You click on this link and then give us your credit card, and that's all they care for. Similarly, the Maya is also a big dhokha. It's giving you a promise of a happiness that you are seeking, but eventually it doesn't have any happiness that it can truly give you. It is a big farce. It's a ripoff. Maya is a dhokha. That is what we have been playing to all along our lives, right? That is why Maharajji says we have gambled on Maya, even though we have taken so much of beating from it. Lifetime after lifetime, we keep on gambling on Maya. We get disappointment, we pick ourselves up and again try something else. Again, we get some disappointment, again we pick up and try something. So this dhokha will continue for as long as intellectually we think Maya is the place for us to extract the happiness that we are looking for. This dance will never end. This will continue. Today it's this, tomorrow it's that, and lifetime after lifetime, our intellect is never convinced that true happiness is in God. Or we think, yeah, happiness is in God, but you get happiness in world also, right? And that is why God has created us. So many arguments our brain will present. So it is a ripoff, basically. It is not an enjoyable experience, but ironically, it is like that horror movie that we have paid for, even though we want to get out of it, but we still don't get out of it because we want to complete that show. So it's truly not an enjoyable experience. Actually, if you look at it, it is that example of a dog. It's a very hard-hitting example that Maharajji gives. It's a little gory, but really put things in perspective. So there's a dog who takes a bone and starts chewing over it. And when it's chewing over the bone, after a while, that bone has no juice in it. It's a very dry, hard bone. And when it starts chewing over it, after a while, its gums, it starts bleeding. And then it starts relishing the juice of its own. That is how the Maya, or the bliss that we derive from this world, is explained in our scriptures. It's a little gory, but essentially that's what we are doing. We are actually enjoying at our own expense by doing more binding karma, by repeating in this, and then all kind of things. Now, how do we align that? It's like if we are too busy in Maya, there is a big problem. How do we align it? So it's like there is a formula to align Maya, like the planets are aligned around the sun. It's not that we are obligated to continue to dance to its tune. You can actually align it. You have that power. And that is where I wanted to have a bit of a discussion. And if somebody can narrate their experiences, even better.
I just wanted to add, Anusha ji had written that this Maya is not enjoyable. Ignorance and lack of resolve makes us dance to Maya.
Yeah, so ignorance is the first problem actually, and then it has its compounding effect. The other day we were discussing in anger management as well, right? So the root cause of all the problems starts with ignorance only. Not knowing that the direction in which we are running needs to be just a bit of a course correction needs to be done. We wanted to run towards Kashmir, we have started running towards Kanyakumari, so direction needs to be reversed. And that's the tweaking that is needed for sure. And yes, it stems from ignorance to begin with. Very true.
We have few hands raised.
Sure, let's hear.
Padma ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Put the track in the meantime as well, so that people can put in remarks as well.
So baby steps, always baby steps. What is presented in front of you and how you want to perceive it. So there's a picture presented in front of us. So what we are seeing is all the subatomic particles are revolving around the nucleus. And we gave an interpretation of, the center, the nucleus is the Maya, and we are rotating around the Maya, right? Everybody can take this to a different level. If you're looking at Maya as Maya, it's going to come back and bite you. But if you look closely, the way that Maya is gravitating you towards the nucleus, there is the same way that there is a centrifugal force which is pulling the atoms, subatomic particles towards the nucleus. The same way Maya is also projecting the centrifugal force to pull you out. So there is an equal and opposite force which is being applied.
So when our mind is so lost, we are not able to see this balance on a material sense. So first, if you balance yourself and understand that if you make Maya as a companion of God, and there is a purpose of this Maya, your vision and your understanding of why you're rotating around Maya will give you that clarity. But if you want to take this a step further, which is for a higher purpose, then you have to vision yourself and say, instead of making Maya as the center, how can I make God as the center? Just like we have theories. Initially, we thought that it was geocentric theory, and then eventually we came back with the heliocentric theory. So our perception and our vision and mindset, when we dovetail of what we are seeing, and we deviate from that regular boring vision that we see, and we give a higher purpose to our vision, it gives you the freedom and liberation to put your thought process with everything that is presented in front of you, whether it's the nucleus, which is the Maya, which is pulling, whether it's a person, whether it is a situation, whether it is a humiliation that somebody gave you, whether it's somebody took away your money, whether somebody divorced you, whether somebody cheated you, whether somebody insulted you, when somebody took away your position that you desired for, whatever, if you look for an opportunity within that and say, this happened to me because God really wanted me to learn something, then the center of the nucleus doesn't become Maya, but the Maya becomes an opportunity.
Wonderful. Great way. You're dovetailing your, what is it that you want or the focal point of your life, and that starts making a lot of difference. Great point, Padmaji. We'll come back to it. I can see one more hand, and let's hear from PTG, and then we'll continue with this discussion. It's a great point, actually. And it's something that you can see. The good thing about Bhagavad Gita is that, see, it is twofold. It is called Brahma Vidya, which is the divine knowledge that we are getting. And secondly, it is also called Yoga Shastra. That means you can practically apply it and see the results for yourself. When you talk about evidence of God, evidence of the statements of the scriptures, the evidence is very simple. You try it and follow the process, you will see the results. Now, the good thing about this is when you start applying it in your life, so you can treat your day-to-day life as a laboratory. You apply it and see the results for yourself. You can actually apply it as a laboratory. And I'll tell you my own example around this concept. Let's hear from PTG, and then we'll continue with this discussion. It's a great realization, or one of the key learnings I've had in my brief journey around it, but a beautiful realization, and I can share that experience. You can try it yourself and see if it works for you or not. Yes, Preeti, let's hear from you.
Radhe Radhe everyone. Nitinji, we would love to hear your experience first. So I'll quickly say something, that it is the inner voice which helps us stop dancing to the tune of Maya. That is it. I mean, I do not know. I do not have a long journey of spirituality, of course, but that's what I feel it is. Radhe Radhe.
Beautiful. Yeah, one is of course, as we get more clarity, as we get more knowledge, we start getting intellectually convinced to direct our efforts towards in a direction that actually is truly uplifting and beneficial for us, for true. The second thing that what I wanted to share was, maybe some of you can share your experiences around it as well, especially if you have started doing some seva or stuff like that. One thing that I've seen is, I used to be super busy even before. It's not that I've used to have time. Super busy, and busy doing what? My job would sap away my energy for most part of it, right? I've worked in onshore, offshore model previously, and whatnot. And then the other things, of course, there are so many social things that you start building around you, and just too many things. And then ever since I started picking up stuff, prioritizing it just a little bit, seva or related to God, or let's say I'm prioritizing going to a retreat, or let's say attending that, I don't know how magically time would start coming out. It will just align so beautifully that if I made a sankalp in my head that I have to attend this or I have to do it, other things will automatically started getting cleared off. And when I picked up this session to begin with, you won't believe my schedule. If you look at it, it's crazy right now. Okay, not to suggest I'm doing something great, but typically in IT industry, you would see the schedules are crazy, no defined work hours and stuff like that. And I had no clue how to work out. But what over the years I've realized is when you do seva, and especially if it's directed with a, you just want to do it, somehow things will start aligning. Somehow it will. Either you will become more productive, or the factors around you start becoming more supportive, or the noise will start cutting out. Something will happen that you will never struggle when it comes to doing seva. I have struggled creating presentations in my, whenever I have to do some presentations at office, I have struggled. Last minute, I'm rushing through, and my boss is saying something, and VP says, okay, we need this, and somebody comes and says this, and I've struggled around that time. But I have never struggled completing anything that I'm supposed to do. It just happens effortlessly, and it's a very enjoyable experience. Not even a single day I've said, okay, I have to create this. Somehow it happens. And time, where is it coming out from? I don't know. People think I have no life. I have life, okay? Sandhya, you know that, right? We went to the picnic the other day. Okay, the people who are in Dallas, we do everything, and I don't know where the time comes from. And at the same time, it's not at the compromise of my work or my sleep. Yeah, all the extra sleep has gone away because I was on the track to become a polar bear previously. So sleep has gotten optimized, but you have time. And where is that time coming from? It's all coming, that energy from the seva that you are doing, and something beautiful that we do every day here. But I have realized time will start coming out, and I can tell you there are a lot of people here who would previously think they don't have not time and at all, but they would start getting time, because God is waiting for us to bless us when we start making him a priority. And the way he can bless us is, I mean, we can't even explain how he will align things for you just to make it happen. And it happens. You can live it every day. And I have seen so many friends of mine, they are just so busy taking care of kids and their job that itself saps their entire energy. And if I look at them, it said if I start talking about God or any of this topic, it will be cruel just looking at their state. I don't know, it happens. So Maya has its ways to keep us busy in so many unproductive ways that you will be surprised. Okay, there's so many ways it can keep you occupied for the rest of your life, and you will say I never had time. But the day you start making it a priority, you will start finding time, and it is magical. It happens, trust me. Maybe somebody else can explain, narrate their story as well, but I am telling you, if you simply try it, just see how your schedule will start aligning around it. And that is the formula. When you make Maya as the nucleus of your life, something related to Maya, it will make you dance for the rest of your life. You start making spirituality as the nucleus of your life, Maya will happily start aligning around it. They'll say, all right, now you've started making my master as your service, so I'll all support it for you. It happens. It will happen. Maya has no choice but to align, because Maya is subservient to God, and its primary job is to take us towards its master. When you start making its master its priority, it'll start supporting you. That's it. It's very simple principle.
True. Seema ji has also said when we want to do God's seva, then he aligns the universe to assist us in every possible manner.
Unimaginable ways, trust me, unimaginable ways. In fact, when I started these sessions, I started blocking my calendar in office, okay, from 6 to 8. I no longer have to do that. So I was like, okay, if I don't get 6 to 8, I will not be able to prepare. Oh my God, how will I do this? No need now anymore. Nobody calls me at between that time, and it has just aligned beautifully. So that's how it goes. And I have met people who have worked in onshore, offshore models, some ISKCON devotees, and they would say we get up at 4 a.m. in the morning, we do our 16 rounds, and then we do this, that. I used to be amazed, how can you make up time for all this thing in midst of all your job and stuff? He said, yeah, it works. Krishna makes it happen. And I thought these guys are freak. But now I realize they are not. Krishna actually makes it happen. How he makes it happen, you just have to realize it by practicing it. That is how beautiful it is. Okay, let's hear. Okay, so participants, couple of announcements I want to make. The family camp that's coming up, I think early bird is ending, and we have somebody, I will not name them, they are willing to sponsor 2 participants. Okay, so put in your name and say why you should get sponsored, and then we will get that done, and we may have some more nominations like that. But do make it a priority, especially if you are in or around Dallas. And Shyamji, you have seen how wonderfully we celebrate things, right? So please check it out if you want to come to the retreat and our family camp. And any other announcement, Sandhya, before we complete our discussion for today? And please fill out the tracker as well.
April 1st, Navratri is starting. So on the 10th April, we have Ram Navami celebrations. And in fact, I think 8th to 10th are going to be celebrations at temple. We are also going to have Mata Ki Chauki on 8th, if I remember it right. Yeah. So whoever is in and around, please make sure you attend. And I think it will be live broadcasted as well. So that way also people can attend.
Yeah, so you have to take her word on that. It's definitely not April Fool announcement, okay, even though it's April 1st. So
yeah, we are announcing it here now. Okay, so we have Shyamji's and Padmaji's hands raised.
yes, Shyamji and Padmaji, let's hear Anuvi.
Radhe Radhe Shyamji.
Radhe Radhe, just on a second thoughts that you said you had sponsoring 2 persons. So sponsorship is only for Dallas or from India also? If it's India, I can watch myself. And
Sure.
Reason being, I'm a true devotee of Krishna now. I am following JKO and my camera is always on. If that helps you, let me know.
Sure, Shyamji, if you have visa and all that stuff, do plan it. It will get sponsored, okay? That much I can assure you.
Just kidding.
We would love to have you, I'm telling you. And you would have never danced like this in the, you know, in the way we celebrate here stuff. So do plan it. Do come.
I can imagine that.
I'm sure you'll have a time of your life here. By the way, we had Hari Anandji and Shalmali Golpadek came here, and he's like, okay, he's having a time of his life here. And I won't be, I mean, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, it's very motivating to see people getting inspired, because see, when you are in the mic world, there is a facade that you have to live up to, that facade, right? But when you get in touch with spirituality, something that touches your soul, that experience is so different that, you know, you will realize that you have not experienced something like that before, ever before. And that will be so powerful, that will very powerful and very captivating it is. So what I would say in these camps, the good thing is that typically we do this satsang, like we sit here every day and then we go back to the world, right? So that dilution happens. But in these family camps and in the retreats, you just immerse in 3 or 4 days. And towards the end of the second or third day, when you have completely immersed yourself in you know, the chantings and the bhajans and the roop dhyan and everything related to spirituality, when you taste the bliss of God, even if it's little bit, your heart will tell you you have never experienced something like this before, ever before in your life, because material world does not have the ability to give you that kick. That is how powerful it is. So that third or fourth day are like, you don't want to get out, and people actually have seen they're crying, they don't want to get out of, you know, they think that it should continue forever. That is how blissful it is. So, but yeah, if you can prioritize it, nothing like it. Yes, Padmaji, we can hear from you as well.
I just wanted to not on the question, but few things that I wanted to say. I don't know how surrender, what that experience would be, but what could be a baby step towards surrender that I dig into myself and see? Always the answer comes back, which is don't try to understand what surrender is from my monkey mind. So I force myself, I beg God to say, give me that experience and vision to understand what truly that surrender is. Because if I execute my monkey mind, I might interpret the 6 steps of surrender. I don't want to use my monkey mind, but give me that strength to actually go beyond that monkey mind to understand what surrender is. And many times it comes in many different ways. So sometimes it might come like, why don't you give a higher purpose to your thoughts? Why don't you give a higher purpose to your temptations? Why don't you give a higher purpose to your actions? So that is baby steps for me to say, okay, this is how I practice surrender. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, when the right knowledge and the spiritual knowledge comes into your intellect, it is a stepping stool, you know, at the door of divinity. But you have to take that extra step. Once that intellect is convinced with that spiritual knowledge and you're convinced, you should be having that courage and the conviction to dare to take that next step. And that I feel most of the times we fail. That, okay, I know this from a subjective matter, but I am kind of not taking that next step. And that's really where you have to beg God and say, I'm really struggling with this. Please give me this extra step And he will give you those little baby steps and little baby upgrades to say, okay, you take one baby step, I will give you that next step. So it's just not that you get the knowledge and intellect, but taking that courage and conviction to actually take that step forward.
True. Beautiful. Yeah. So basically, once we take one step, God says, I'll take 10 steps for you. That is how the proportion goes. That's a beautiful point. And there is something that stops us because of our past sanskars. But if we simply take that, that step, then that itself can take us miles. Actually, that is how powerful it can be. And tomorrow we will discuss an important topic that we said, right? It is a farce, that it's a fraud, the promise of happiness in Maya. But we will see the happiness in Maya in proper context tomorrow, because Tuesday we pick up something to recap. So rather than picking up the remaining two principles of surrender, we'll pick up that happiness of Maya. We'll see it in perspective, so that that concept become even more clear, that something that we think is truly going to give us happiness. How does this principle work actually? The Mike happiness, so to say, is what we will discuss tomorrow. But great point, Padmaji. I think we have to take our baby steps, and then even in physics, they say the coefficient of static friction is higher than coefficient of kinetic friction. That means in order to roll a ball, you need more force, right? If a stone is lying somewhere, to push it, it takes a lot of force. But once it's rolling, it takes less force. Even when the rocket goes into space, 80% of the fuel is spent in the initial part, right? Once it is already there, then the centripetal force, that takes care of it in the orbit. But 80% of the fuel is spent during the first few hours or minutes only. So the initial part, that push is needed. That is where we have to do that, which is called sadhan bhakti. And then once we are there, then the God will start gracing, and then it will be like an autopilot from that point onwards. But that initial step, that initial inertia, we have to overcome through concerted efforts and proper knowledge. That's the key. Beautiful points. Any concluding thoughts from anybody, or anything else, Sandhya, you had to?
There's one more. Yeah, there's one more announcement. This is about Bhakti Yog Sadhana Shivir, which is from 30th March to 3rd April. This consists of lectures on Chaitanya Leela Amrit, soulful kirtans, cultural programs, special sevas, and yoga and pranayama. And this can also be attended online. So I've posted the link and other announcements, and as well as the feedback tracker. So please make use of that. Whatever questions, comments you have, so you can put in the feedback tracker.
Okay, one more question I wanted to take. This was, I think it came from Rupaji or Lakshmiji. What is Bhagavatam? What is the significance of Bhagavatam? So Bhagavatam is considered, if our scriptures are considered, let's say a tree, right? The ripened fruit of that tree is Bhagavatam. Now Bhagavatam was written by Vedavyas, right? Who has written so many Puranas and everything. And then in the very beginning of Bhagavatam, he says, that I have Sarva Shastrani Arodhyam Puni Puni, that all the scriptures I have churned multiple times. And ordinary person is not saying that. Vedavyas is saying that. Who is Vedavyas? When he was supposed to write down Mahabharata, he said, I need somebody who can write it as I speak. And then he found Ganeshji to write that. But Ganeshji put a condition that, you will keep on speaking, you will not stop. Then Vedavyas said, okay, if that is the condition, then you will first have to understand and then write. So deal on. And Vedavyas kept on reciting, he kept on writing. And then there were some jatil shlokas, because Vedavyas had to take some breaks also in between, right? Go to restroom or whatever. So he put some kutil shlokas where even Ganesha had to think. Okay, so there are around 800 or so. So that is the Vedavyas we're talking about. And he's saying, I had to think. Now Vedavyas has to think that Arodhyam Puni Puni Sarva Shastrani, everything I have to script. So after doing that manthan, what he wrote was Bhagavatam. And that is, Narad had told him, you can write it only after you do devotion. And he said, the reason you're not feeling satisfied is because in all your scriptures you have written, it is knowledge. You have not really glorified Lord as yet. And that is why you're not having that sense of satisfaction. And after Vedavyas wrote Bhagavatam, he said, now my literary work is complete. That is the power of Bhagavatam. So if there is any scripture you want to pick up, after you understand the basics, everything in Bhagavad Gita, from a practical implementation, and you want to immerse yourself in devotion, Bhagavatam is the book to go. It's a very, very auspicious book. And it is said that where the message of Quran ends, Bible begins. Quran ends at don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Bible begins at do this and become good. That is where Bible ends. Bhagavad Gita begins from where Bible left. It's like being good is not good enough. Bhagavad Gita ends at moksha. It said, okay, being good is not, you will at best go to celestial abodes. And where Bhagavad Gita ends, Bhagavatam begins. Bhagavatam says, dharam, karam, arth, moksha, leave aside. Let's get into the depths of bhakti. So that is the significance of Bhagavatam in our scriptures. Nothing more than Bhagavatam, okay, that we have. Hopefully it puts things in perspective. I look forward to, yes, Chetanji, we have a real quick question. Tomorrow we'll talk about the mic happiness, and we'll pick up some beautiful examples, interesting example that Maharaji gives to drive home the point. So I look forward to that discussion as well. We can take maybe a real quick question from Chetanji and then conclude our session.
His hand is not raised, I guess.
Okay, maybe not then.
Rupaji has raised hand.
Yes, Rupaji.
Thank you, Nitinji. Thank you, Nitinji, for making it clear, because always I hear from you or anyone, Bhagavad Gita is different and Bhagavatam is different, but never entered into both of that book. But still, I just wanted to know what the real thing is. That's it. Thanks a lot. You made it clear for me.
Yeah, that is why we pull up a lot of references from Bhagavatam from time to time as well. So, yeah.
There are two more hands. Can we take them quickly?
Sure, real quick. Jyotiji and then Artiji, very, very quick. And Artiji, on one promise that you're not going to ask me to repeat what I said in the previous. Okay, yes, Jyoti, go ahead. We have a scorpion here. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So I have very naive question, where when a person should understand that when to beg to God and when to let go.
When to beg to God and when to let go. Beg for what? First of all, tell me, define that.
Begging for your desires or requirement.
No begging of that. That is not a good begging at all.
Okay.
You beg to God only for his darshan and for his grace. And whenever you beg for that, keep on begging, I would say. Don't let go of it.
Okay.
Don't let go of it. But other than that, see, that is another concept. We ask God for things, okay, which God can possibly give. That is not a good sustainable game plan. That is called Sakam Bhakti.
Okay.
That will not take us very far. What if God doesn't fulfill your wishes? Because it's not dictated by your karma. Will you lose trust in God then?
Yeah, even though I will.
You will lose trust in God then?
No, I will not lose trust. I mean, even if God is not going to fulfill my desire, even that is fine. I'll still.
Then why do you have to beg? Don't you think that he knows what is best for you already?
Yeah. But sometimes our mind get confused.
Right. So we have to ask, if we have to ask something from God, we should ask for his darshan and his kripa, right?
Okay.
Or his bhakti, nothing else. God already knows what is best for us. We don't need to ask him specifically. It is dictated by anyway through our karmas and a lot of stuff. So it's not like we will give a prasad or put a mannat and God will give something to us.
Sorry.
So that.
But I wanted to get this.
And let go part is when you have put in your best efforts in anything, result you have to let go.
Okay.
Don't think that God, I need this result and only I'll be happy if I get this result. You're violating that principle.
Okay.
So let go. Put your best and let go on the results. That is.
And if you're putting your best effort and you're not getting what you ideally should get, then in that case, that's
ideally should get. Who's defining that?
So to me, if someone has put some hard work and effort, the person should get.
You think somebody else might not have put a harder work? How do you know that? Do you have the big picture around it?
No.
It's a function of a lot of variables. We will revisit Karam Yoga once again. I think it will help you address. So God has a bigger picture. We have a very limited picture about everything. So we put our efforts and we leave the results to God. Sometimes without working, you may hit a lottery And sometimes even without putting a lot of hard work, you may not get the result. That is how the perfect justice system, which is a variable of a lot of other functions, operates. And we simply have to accept, because you making complaint or making desires in any way not going to make a difference. The harm that you would have done is you have violated the principle of surrender and given up an opportunity where you could have uplifted your soul in that situation. But we can continue on that discussion. Good point. Real quick, I know we're getting late now, so one minute each, not more than that. Because
Radhe Radhe Aarti ji.
Yes, Aarti ji.
Radhe Radhe everyone, Radhe Radhe Nitin ji. Actually, I just wanted to understand that physics law that you were trying to explain. Coefficient of static friction is higher than what?
Coefficient of kinetic friction. Okay, my physics teacher will be very happy today. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
When you have to move something from rest, it takes more effort. Once it's already moving, it takes less effort.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Aarti ji. Yes, Shri Ramya ji, real quick.
Radhe Radhe, I just was thinking on what Jyoti ji asked, like when to beg, when to let go. I had the same question and a few days back, and you and I think Kumar ji, you reminded me of the serenity prayer, like you asked for the wisdom to differentiate what is in control and what is not in my control, and that you ask of God the wisdom to differentiate. And one more thing that Jyoti ji asked, like if we are putting our efforts and we are not seeing the results, like how to know whether we should pursue it or leave it. That was exactly the same question which I asked Swamiji in Bhagavad Gita Q&A. And what Swamiji said is, if you have a guru, ask a guru. Like that will be the best thing to do. Krishna doesn't say anywhere in Bhagavad Gita that is exactly in the situation you have to do. Or another thing is go with your best intention with that best particular thing. But the more we surrender to the will of God and more we are aligned to the path of bhakti, the more visible the answer will be, and to increase our effort in the path of bhakti. I'm not exactly able to recall fully what Swamiji said, but this was the gist of it. I'd asked the same question to him in Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Shri Ramya ji. Beautiful points. As we go in devotion, I think we start gaining more acceptance, and one of the natural consequences of doing bhakti is we start aligning our will to God's will. It starts happening. Bhakti is like that pill. You take that medicine and then you don't really worry, right? Now it has become part of my blood, and it's going to the part where it truly needs it. It just all happens automatically. So bhakti is that pill which will give us all around benefits with regards to what we truly need to progress spiritually. Okay, with that, we come to the close of today's session. Tomorrow, I look forward to another engaging discussion. We can do our closing prayers. If you want to recite together, you can unmute yourself and we can do it together as well. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu.
Dukkha bhavet.
Shanti.
Shanti. Shanti.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day and a great rest of your evening. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe. Thank you.
Radhe Radhe.